Listen, I have no concept of time anymore. I'm fairly certain that I forgot to do a vlog last week. I'm gonna stick this vlog in before another vlog that I already did because I don't want to bog you guys down with Weight Watchers content. I don't want to talk about what's going on with my hair right now. And finally, I want to give you a heads up that this video is about reproduction. And if you don't want to hear about that, then you should probably get the f*** out now. Hi guys, my name's Angie. I'm the Soggy Granola mom. If you're new here and you don't know what Soggy Granola means, I will pop in a card up there so you can check out my intro video and find out what that's all about. If you're not new here, thank you so much for coming back. It really means a lot to me that you guys come back time and time again to watch my videos. I really do appreciate the support. Before we get rolling with maybe a controversial video, I don't know, it's probably not controversial unless you're my friends or family, in which case you really might want to close out of this, especially if you're my little brothers, seriously. Before we get rolling with today's topic, I want to remind you guys to subscribe, smash the like button, and do all that garbage if you have not already. And if you did, I appreciate you. I love you. So again, this is your final reminder. If you're anyone related to me and you don't want to hear about my reproductive system or my reproductive journey, you might want to leave now. With that aside, I want to talk about something. I think it's something that's a struggle for a lot of women and it shouldn't be taboo, but maybe some people just don't feel comfortable talking about their reproductive journey. It is not as simple and as straightforward as, I want to make a baby, okay, let's go do it, baby made. It doesn't work like that. I know it seems like it does when people get unexpectedly pregnant very quickly, but a lot of things have to come into play and a lot of things have to line up for that to happen. I want to talk about my experience with trying to get pregnant with my daughter. I wanted to share it with others in case it might help somebody out there who is having similar struggles or just wants more information on how to try and conceive. Even up until this point in my life, I'm actually still learning things. I just found out new information that I didn't know recently with just a discussion with my doctor about my hormones. Before I get into that though, I'm gonna literally take it all the way back to the beginning of my journey, and I promise you there'll be things that you learn and facts that you learn towards the end. I'll kind of recap everything and talk about some statistics that I got from my doctor that might be beneficial for you to know, just so you know what you're dealing with and what the facts are. I've spoken to a lot of women over the past couple years through all of this, women who were in their 20s, women who were in their 30s, who are either trying to conceive, avoiding trying to conceive, that also don't really remember any of this stuff from health class or sex education. And genuinely, I just don't have any recollection of learning these things. And if I did, it was so long ago that, you know, it's gone. And of course, at that time too, I was like an immature teenager and I was trying not to laugh in sex ed. Astounding, I know. Basically, my entire journey into my own fertility and my own desire to have a baby taught me a lot of things through doctors, through research, through tracking things that I never knew about myself. So the timeline for me into deciding we wanted to start a family began in July of 2015. I had been on birth control the entire time, pretty much, that I was in a relationship with my now husband, and I wanted to get off of birth control to help my body regulate so that I could start to have normal cycles again. So we knew we wanted to try in 2016 growing our family. So I wanted to give myself like 6 months to get my body used to its own cycle, its own hormone levels, instead of that like prescribed 4-week cycle that you get when you take birth control pills. In December of 2015, after, 5 months or so, we decided to not try, but to not try, if that makes sense. We weren't taking active precautions to stop from getting pregnant. My periods continued to be between 9 to 12 weeks apart, which was insane for me. Now, the time frame before I had gone on birth control, I had relatively regular cycles. I never tracked it. I never knew when ovulation was happening. I never really paid attention to that stuff. I was in my early 20s and I wasn't looking to make a baby at that point. I was still in college. And I was pursuing my education and eventually wanted to pursue my career. But going off of birth control after being on it for several years, I didn't expect my periods to bounce right back to normal, but I was pretty shocked to find that there was sometimes 9 to 12 weeks in between periods, and it just didn't seem right, didn't seem normal. And for months, this wasn't changing. So in April of 2016, I decided, since my periods weren't leveling out and we really were gonna try and conceive at that point, like actually focus on it and try to track everything and plan to start our family, I wanted to go see an OB to get some answers because my periods were still all over the place and there was so much space in between each one. I didn't even know where to start. When I went in, the first thing the doctor asked me was, how much did you weigh before you went on birth control? And it was significantly less than where I was at that point in my life. I was pretty heavy. So she told me, even being heavy, losing 10 to 20 pounds, you can see a jump start in your cycle again, and it can actually help regulate things for you in your hormone levels. So at that point, I basically decided to go back on a diet, lost some weight. I saw my cycles return to a 4-week cycle, and we decided to start trying. So I downloaded the Glow app to start tracking just my periods, and it would give me an estimation of when my fertile window was, and we were going by that whenever we would try. The OB told me to return in 3 months if we hadn't gotten pregnant because everything was so wacky for so long. She wanted us to check in with her after a few months. For some reason, I can't remember why, I never went back to see the OB. I think because my periods regulated and they were 4 weeks long, that I didn't think anything was wrong. I thought I had solved the issue. So we were like, we're just going to keep trying. We did on and off for a full year from April of 2016 until April of 2017. But we did not have any success, obviously. I was continuing to lose some weight. I was continuing to track everything in the Glow app. In May of 2017, I ended up leaving my job and I was going to pursue freelance video production. So since I decided to leave my job, we ended up backburnering the whole family thing for a while. I wanted to figure out what was going on with my career and building my business up. I felt like because my income wasn't stable that it would be a bad idea to try and start a family at that point. And since we hadn't had success, I kind of got sick of tracking and trying, and I was just kind of over the cycle of it all. Pun not intended. I took up a substitute teaching job, which was incredibly stressful, and I was miserable in the beginning. It took me a long time to settle in and find my footing with that. And I just didn't want to add trying to have a baby on top of everything because I was not in a great place mentally. I think through the end of the year, we never bothered trying getting pregnant. But in 2018, at the beginning of the year, we decided to try. We did some months on, some months off. I actually had a vacation planned for August of 2018 to go to England with my grandma. So at a certain point, I decided, let's just stop because I don't want to get pregnant and then be morning sickness in another country while I'm trying to enjoy this vacation. Even though, it was kind of on and off for a few months there, I was still doing ovulation tests. I bought the ovulation test strip kits off of Amazon. I was tracking my cycle every month. We would try during my fertile week, but I found out through that I was actually ovulating a week later than most, a typical cycle. So your typical cycle is day 1 is the day you start your period. That lasts from 4 to 7 days for most women. You tend to ovulate 2 weeks after that first day. So if your period starts on a Monday, 2 weeks later on that Monday, you should be ovulating. And then 2 weeks later, if you don't have a fertilized egg and you didn't conceive, you would start your period again. So ovulation is supposed to be kind of smack in the middle of the first day of your last period and the first day of your next period. I was having a 4-week cycle, but I wasn't ovulating until 3 weeks after I started my period. And then I'd start another period, between 6 to 7 days after I had ovulated. I didn't really think anything of that. I didn't realize that was not normal, so to speak. I mean, I guess it technically is normal because after speaking with my current OB, I learned that everybody's cycle is obviously a little bit different, but you do want a longer window after you ovulate because it gives more of a chance for an egg to implant. At this time, I didn't know that though. So in April of 2018, I actually ended up going back to my old job at the radio station. I only went part-time, but that summer when I was assured my position at the radio station was not going to end, at first I thought it was temporary. My husband and I decided that we were gonna really try and start conceiving again. In June of 2018, I went back to the OB that I hadn't been to since April of 2016 when I initially was like, what's going on with my periods? Why are they all over the place? And she was like, lose some weight, see me in 3 months if you haven't gotten pregnant. And I never went back. Before I decided to go to the doctor though, we had that period of the first half of 2018 trying to conceive, tracking with ovulation kits, tracking in Glow, having that cycle that's 4 weeks, but ovulation comes after 3 weeks. I had talked to a friend and she told me that when you have such a short time frame after you ovulate to when you start your next period, that can be a sign of low progesterone. And I was like, that's weird. I never knew that. I guess I never really bothered to look into it because I was having a 4-week cycle, so it didn't really seem unusual to me. So I was like, all right, we really want to get pregnant this year. This is 2018. We've already gotten through half of the year and nothing's happened yet. So I'm going to go back to the OB. I'm going to talk to her about this thing my friend told me about this low progesterone situation and see what she thinks. Basically, what she told me is when you do ovulate and then you start your period, 6-7 days after you ovulate, that can be a sign of low progesterone. If you don't know, progesterone is the hormone that keeps your body pregnant. So a lot of women who have low progesterone, miscarriage can be a concern. Not being able to have an egg, even implant, because you start your period too soon is also a situation. So the doctor wanted to do a progesterone lab where I would track my next period and then day 21, which should have been 1 week post-ovulation on a normal cycle, go get a progesterone lab and see where you're at because it should be elevated at that point. I was going on my trip in August. We decided I don't want to be in my early pregnancy during that, so we weren't going to start trying until September. I was due for my progesterone lab on Labor Day of 2018. I remember because we went camping that weekend and we had to get back in time that I could go to the lab and have a blood draw. The results did come back that I was low in progesterone for that point in my cycle. So the doctor prescribed progesterone supplements and she told me to keep using ovulation predictor kits, track what's going on with my cycle. As soon as I would get a positive ovulation test that I was going to ovulate, I needed to start taking the progesterone. It's a supplement you take 4 times a day, and you do that for 2 full weeks. At the end of the 2 weeks, you would take a pregnancy test. If it was negative, you stop the progesterone supplements, you start all over again. Basically, you get your period, and then the whole thing starts over again. And you do that every month until you conceive. With that, she also told me my cycles would lengthen because I had that long time frame before ovulating. I had an extra week in there compared to most women. Then I would have the 2 weeks where I was taking the progesterone supplements, and that would lengthen my cycle, and I wouldn't start my period until, a couple days after I'd gone off the progesterone supplements. If you do conceive, then they want you to continue it all the way through your 12th week of pregnancy to help support that and make sure, they can't guarantee anything, but to help reduce that risk of having a miscarriage. So we had planned on trying to start when I was due to ovulate in September of 2018. After my Labor Day camping trip, I went and got that progesterone test. I was dealing with a skin condition that turned out to be the gluten rash, but I didn't know it at the time. So I had gone on an elimination diet and I cut out eggs, nuts, dairy, soy, and wheat to try and get some answers about what was going on. I ended up not even having my cycle that month, and part of me thinks it's because I stopped eating eggs, and I used to eat eggs. I still eat eggs every single day, pretty much. But I also did find out later that sometimes we don't even ovulate in certain months. So September was off the table because I didn't ovulate. We had to wait until I had my period in October. Then I did the ovulation predictor kits. We tried to conceive during my fertile week. We started the progesterone as soon as that test was positive. And then I still ended up getting my period 6 to 7 days after I had ovulated, while taking the supplements, in which I was under the impression my post-ovulation time frame was going to lengthen. That window was going to get a little bigger to help give an egg time to implant, right? So it happened in November as well. I'm upset. I'm like, the progesterone's not doing what it's supposed to do. I'm not going to get pregnant if I keep bleeding, or starting my period a few days after I ovulate. It's just not working. So I called the OB and she was like, all right, well, we'll get you referred to a fertility clinic. There might be some extra things we need to add to that. Sometimes it's just a matter of a couple other medications, but then you'll get a clearer picture of what's going on. So in December, we had one last prescription of progesterone. I was due to go to the fertility clinic in January. We were like, we've got the pills, we've got the ovulation kit. Let's just give it another go. And I got my positive test. We had tried to conceive within the fertile window. I was taking my pills. And again, 7 days or so after I had ovulated, I started bleeding. So I was convinced not pregnant, started my period. The 2 weeks rolled by where I was supposed to stop taking the progesterone. I actually took all 14 days. And then on day 15, if I had known if I was pregnant, then I would continue getting those supplements, right? I forgot to take the test on day 14, which I should have. I didn't take until day 15, and I had the faintest positive line. Like, I was not convinced that I was pregnant, and I'm just crying. I'm just sitting on my bed like, what if I'm pregnant? Am I pregnant? Is this a false positive? Is it an evap line? Like the little evaporation line. Sometimes if you read a pregnancy test too late after you take it, you can think that it's a faint positive. I don't know. I just wasn't convinced. So at that point, you know, we've got the positive test, very faint. The ovulation kits come with like 50 ovulation test strips and usually like 10 pregnancy test strips. I had so many different brands from buying them over the years. I'm just grabbing one of each of the different brands of pregnancy test strips, like pee in a cup. I'm dipping all of these stupid strips into the cup, and sure enough, they're all coming back positive and that, you know, I'm pregnant. And so then I'm like, I'm not convinced. And I go to the store and I buy like an EPT big pregnancy pee stick test. It's the next day I take it. It's definitely a positive. I'm pregnant. And so the next day after that, it came with like a digital one as well. I take the digital one and it says yes on it. And I'm just like, holy shit, I'm f***ing pregnant. So I want to fast forward a little bit. Like, we're currently in the process of trying to get pregnant again. And I don't think that's a secret. I'm pretty sure I've mentioned it. We want to have 2 kids and we want them close together. So given the history with all my hormone issues, having the very short window after ovulation, the 3-week ovulation time frame instead of the 2-week, I just wanted to get ahead of the game and kind of get a better idea of what was going on with me now, because I know things can change after you have a baby. I contacted my OB's office. I actually switched to a different OB, one I had seen a few times during my pregnancy, because they rotate you to see as many doctors as possible, just so that you're kind of familiar with whoever might be on staff when you're in labor, getting ready to deliver your baby. This doctor I had seen a few times ended up being the one who delivered Elise via C-section. She just had a really professional vibe, but also like caring. And she seems very statistics and like facts driven, which I personally appreciate, because I want to know what the actual research is out there, what the facts are, what chances are of everything. So she can be kind of straight and narrow, but she also just had the kindest attitude towards me when I was petrified about to deliver my baby via surgery. So I knew when the time came, I really did want to go back to her, because I felt like I was going to get a clearer picture about what was going on with me, just by her nature of really paying attention to the numbers and the facts and my medical history. She's always looking back through my chart every time I see her or talk to her on the phone. She decided this year we're going to do something called maximizing my fertility, and she wanted to run a full panel of all of my hormones, not just look at my progesterone, but look at everything. So she ordered labs this month for thyroid, diabetes, prolactin, FSH, estradiol, and progesterone. She just wants to look at everything and see where we're at and where we stand. She explained to me also that doing these labs and these tests is literally just a picture of this one cycle, and that it can change every single month. She told me that we only release an egg 70% of the time. So in 10 months, 7 times you're going to release, you know, on average, obviously, but 7 times you're going to release an egg. 3 times you're not even going to ovulate. You're not even going to release an egg to be fertilized. She also told me that pregnancy is linked to intercourse every day or every other day leading up to ovulation, and on the day of ovulation if you are tracking or you are in tune with your body and you know when that's happening. That is going to be more closely associated to a pregnancy than trying to have intercourse the day after you ovulate, because an egg only lives for 24 hours. So the idea is if you're doing it leading up to ovulation, sperm can live up to 5 days in your fallopian tubes and all that stuff. And so they basically just hang out in there and wait for an egg to come out. So that's why you want to do that leading up to ovulation day, so that they're there chilling, waiting for an egg. Every time that we have a successful, healthy ovulation, we have a healthy egg met with a healthy sperm, we still only have a 1 in 6 chance of actually conceiving, of that egg implanting and us becoming pregnant. And it is crazy when you think about it, because all these numbers, like, you seriously, I swear to God, when you're trying to get pregnant, you just see everybody else getting pregnant and you're like, why is this so easy for everyone? But literally the stars have to align every single time somebody gets pregnant, even when it's an accident and it's not on purpose or is completely unplanned. Like, a lot of things have to come together and be perfectly aligned for that to happen and for you to have a successful full-term pregnancy. So some of the other things that have been going on is I've been continuing to lose the baby weight, because they had recommended at my 6-week post-op that I should try to at least lose the baby weight before I try getting pregnant again, because I am already overweight. It does take most women about a year to lose that weight. I gained 60 pounds. I had to hustle, thus all the Weight Watchers content, to get to a point where I've lost almost all the baby weight. But that way I can ensure another healthy pregnancy when that time comes. Losing weight has also helped my hormone levels mostly level out. I now am at a point where I don't start my period until about 11 days post-ovulation, which is great because usually the window for implantation is 6 to 10 days. And if I was starting my period at 6 or 7 days after, again, it's a very short window of time before you start your period and you shed everything that's in there. And even if there was a fertilized egg, it didn't even have a chance. So now I have that window that's a little bit more long, which ups my odds for my chance to get pregnant. I've been doing ovulation predictor kits again. I'm tracking my cycles in Glow. I have a better picture of what that cycle is, not, even though it's about 4.5 weeks-ish. I'm not listening to what the app says I should be ovulating 2 weeks after my period. That's not me. My body just doesn't do that. It takes 3 weeks, almost on the nose. Every single time, if I start my period on Sunday, I almost always get a positive ovulation on the Saturday or Sunday 3 weeks later. I've been getting test results back, and after going over my current hormone levels with my doctor, I found out that actually everything is in really great shape except for my progesterone again. They are lower, but she tested me 7 days post-ovulation instead of just day 21 like the previous doctor did. Because I do ovulate so late, you have to look at your levels the week after you ovulate and not just assume day 21, because for me, day 21 is when I ovulate. My progesterone should rise after that. So to get a real clear picture of what my progesterone looked like when I ovulate in the 7-day time frame afterwards, when it should be up to maintain a pregnancy, she had me go in for a lab on day 28, essentially. After discovering the situation with my progesterone being low, she kind of talked to me about going back on progesterone supplements if I were to conceive, to keep those levels high. But she actually also told me there is very limited information on whether or not that actually helps. They know it won't hurt you, but it's kind of inconclusive if progesterone supplements actually help your levels stay high enough to maintain a pregnancy. But if it made me feel better and more comfortable, I could go ahead and get Prometrium, which is just the brand name of progesterone supplement I was on, and do that if I were to conceive and go through the first trimester taking progesterone. The last thing my doctor talked to me about was if I were to test positive after my 2 weeks post-ovulation, I tracked everything, we had intercourse in my fertile time frame, I conceive, and then 2 weeks later, I take my pregnancy test, I get that positive. It still doesn't guarantee that the pregnancy is going to stick. And I don't quote me on this, but I believe that that's a chemical pregnancy. So like you have the fertilized egg, it starts to implant, you start producing HCG hormone, which is the hormone that your pee sticks detect to tell you that you're pregnant, right? So you start to produce that, you get a positive test. It still doesn't mean that the embryo will stick, because if either the egg or the sperm were unhealthy and it's basically kind of a dud, your body's gonna shed it. It's not gonna stay. So even sometimes when you get those positive tests and you lose it right away, don't think that there's necessarily something wrong with you. That's actually normal, and that happens to perfectly healthy individuals with absolutely no fertility issues. It's just sometimes we release a dud egg or it meets a dud sperm and you can't control it. I've dealt with kind of the tip of the iceberg of fertility issues. There are so many things that have to come together. Like I said, the stars just have to align perfectly. And that's even the case for very healthy individuals with healthy eggs and healthy sperm, and sometimes things just don't line up and it can take time. That's why they also recommend, and I've heard this from multiple doctors, that you continue to try for a year consecutively, and if you have not conceived within a full year, 12 months of trying to have a baby, then you should seek some help with your fertility. I had such a bumpy road, and I felt like I tried on and off for so long, and I didn't go and consecutively do these things and get a clearer picture of what was going on with my hormones and realize that maybe something wasn't right. But I'm so lucky now to have such an amazing OB who is literally giving me all the information that she has, and she's reassuring me that if it takes a while to get pregnant again, that's not necessarily anything wrong with me. We know that my progesterone is low, but it doesn't mean it's impossible. Obviously, I've had one baby, so I'm definitely capable of becoming pregnant and carrying a healthy baby full term with a thoroughly beginning to end healthy pregnancy. I was so lucky to not really encounter any issues in the course of that with Elise. I guess I just wanted to share my story to keep people encouraged and to have you understand that, the statistics are kind of against us, even in the healthiest forms of ourselves. And if you're trying, don't get discouraged. Keep trying. Do the full year if you really want to start your family. And if you don't have success, find a good doctor who listens to you, who explains things to you so that you can understand them and gives you the true statistics. What I love about my current doctor is that she doesn't sugarcoat anything. She's not mean, but she just doesn't give me a false sense of hope about anything. Whereas previously, my OB was just like, we'll give you progesterone and this is what you'll do and this is what should happen, and we'll go from there. Whereas this doctor lays it all out for me. And for my personality type, I need someone like that. I want to know the details and I want to know what to expect. So if you're out there and you're trying, don't get discouraged. Keep doing research, keep finding things out, keep talking to your doctors and picking their brains and trying to figure out how to best maximize your chances to start a family. I'm all winded because I just chased my cat down the stairs because he was clawing the door like a jerk. If you made it all the way to the end of this, kudos, man. I talked for a long time in this one. I'm not looking forward to editing it. Also, if you made it to the end of this and you're new here, I really do hope that you subscribe. I do make long videos though, so if that's not your thing, maybe don't. I guess that's it. I don't really have anything else to say other than I'll see you in the next video. Deuces. I think Josh just threw some microwave on the floor or something. He's a bull in a china shop. All I hear is him thumping around down there. I would choose to vlog when he's down there eating. Oh my god, and he's just a fucking clinking on the goddamn bowl!